Hi everyone. For math today, we are still talking about the metric system. Last week, you were talking about customary units of measurement, which we use mostly in the United States, but this week you were introduced to the metric system. And yesterday, you were talking about measuring length, and I just want to quickly review that and then we'll move on. So yesterday, when you were talking about metric length, you were using some words that you're seeing in the chart here over on the right. So this is the metric system for length, and you heard words like millimeter. So that's really, really tiny. And then you heard the word centimeter, which you should be familiar with because it's on most rulers on the opposite side of inches. And then meter. And a meter is just a little longer than a yardstick, just to remind you about how long that is. And then finally, kilometer. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. This is a chart to kind of look at what those metric measurement lengths look like. And what I mean by that is how one measurement or unit compares to another. So I'm going to talk you through this chart real quick so that you can see the relationships between meter and millimeter, or centimeter and millimeter, or meter and kilometer. All right, so when I look at all of these measurements on the chart, I like to start with the one that I know the easiest, or I'm most familiar with. And so I'm most familiar with a meter, and I know that 1 meter is created when you collect 100 centimeters. So a meter stick is exactly 100 centimeters long. Now, that means that 1 meter has to be a lot of millimeters. Since millimeters are smaller than centimeters, you would need a lot more of them. And the neat thing about the metric system is you're going to see that the relationship between the numbers or the units is always in tens and thousands. So 1 meter is 1,000 millimeters. All right, so then knowing that, if you had 1 little centimeter, how many of those teeny tiny millimeters would you need? You would need exactly 10. And then finally, if you wanted to know how far is a kilometer, which is kind of the connection or relationship equivalent to miles. We measure kilometers for long distances. And if I wanted to get 1 kilometer, I would have to collect 1,000 of those meter sticks. So if you can kind of imagine that. So hopefully looking at this chart kind of helps you see the relationships between the different metric measurements for length. Now today we're going to move on to using the metric system or metric units to measure capacity. And you should be able to select which unit you would use to measure various liquid amounts. So I have another little poster here that looks at the metric measurements of capacity. And you're going to see on the right-hand side here, we have milliliter and liter. And then you see on their chart that I borrowed, it says kiloliter, and we are not really required to memorize that or know as much about it, but you should know that kiloliter is larger than a liter, and you would actually need 1,000 liters to equal it. But for today, I just need you to think about these two, milliliter and liter. So I'm going to read the little definitions or descriptions to you. It says a milliliter is about 10 drops from an eyedropper. Pretty small. Then a liter is about 1,000 milliliters. So it's the amount that you might find in a larger bottle of soda. Not the 2 liter, the big ones that most people buy are 2 liter bottles, but a liter is a little smaller than that. I'm going to have some pictures in a minute to help you make some connections and relate to what you know. All right, so right here, we're looking at some various pictures. In the background, you can probably hear my coffee pot. So right here is showing you that 1 milliliter is just a few drops from this eye dropper or medicine dropper. And then this is another one I found, and it's marked right on there, the measurement of 1 milliliter. And the same thing with these. These are medicine droppers that I feel like I used with my pets or something, where you would draw up the medicine into the dropper, so you give them just the right amount. And so that's all labeled and marked on there. Now over here, now we're looking at liter. So this water bottle, a larger water bottle, is about a liter. And then here we have 2 different drinks, and this orange juice is a liter, and this can here is 250 milliliters. And then this smart water is also 1 liter. So hopefully that kind of gives you a connection. Milliliter is smaller, and you would need 1,000 milliliters to get you to 1 liter. All right, so Mrs. Beer has 4 containers filled with water. I have a soup can, a bleach bottle, a thimble, and a bucket. And I'm going to ask you in a second, which unit of measurement would you use to measure the amount of water each of those containers could hold? And before I go to the next slide, I wanted you to see a picture of a thimble in case you weren't really familiar with that. So a thimble is a little thing you use when you're sewing, and it protects your fingers so that you don't poke yourself with a needle. All right, so think about those 4 containers and what unit of metric in the metric system would help you to measure how much liquid those containers could hold. So here again is just me asking you the same question. You're going to choose between milliliter or liter. So if you want to write those down, just number your paper 1 to 4 and pause the video. And so you can write milliliter or liter as your choice for each one. And then you can move on and see the answers. All right, a soup can is smaller than a liter. It seems like, it's holding a decent amount, but it's definitely smaller than a liter. So we would go ahead and use milliliter to measure the liquid in there. A bleach bottle, if you've seen kind of the larger jugs, those are measured in liters. The teeny tiny thimble, I'm sure you knew, would have to be milliliters. And then finally, a bucket would be measured in liters. Okay, so if you want to pause and go grab your black math book, I am going to walk you through the reteach side today and do those answers with you. So I'm kind of helping you out and walk you through that. So go ahead and grab your black math book and then come back and we'll go through it. I wanted to point out to you that there's always information here at the top of the reteach side that kind of summarizes what you should know about the lesson. And so it's reminding you here that 1 liter is the same as 1,000 milliliters. And there's some more information there. You can go back and read. And then here is your reteach side. And it's asking you, what would you use, liter or milliliter? And number 1, you should easily know the answer because we just did it. And that would be milliliter. So it's a little m and a large L for milliliter. A kitchen sink is definitely a lot more liquid than in that water bottle that's about a liter size. So a kitchen sink's going to hold more liquid. So we'll measure that with liter. A coffee cup would be milliliter. And then a bucket of water for a horse. We kind of talked about bucket a minute ago, so we would measure that in liters. Number 5 says, if a container holds 5 liters of fluid, does it hold more than or less than 5 milliliters? So basically, if you have 5 milliliters, that's a tiny amount. And if you have 5 liters, we know that is kind of a lot. So the container would be holding more. I'm just going to write more for that answer instead of a long, complete sentence. But the container holds more than 5 milliliters. And then number 6 says a bottle is filled with saline solution for eyes. So I used to use that when I wore contacts. It's just a liquid. Is the bottle more likely to hold 15 milliliters of solution, or would it be 1 liter? So if you're not familiar with, those products for eyes, you might not be, knowing for sure like how much it would be. But imagine a large water bottle. That's a lot of liquid. And so when you're buying a product like saline solution, it's not going to be that much. That would be kind of a lot. So the correct answer would be 15 milliliters. So just reminding you, it would be really important to, pay attention to what's in your house and the products that are labeled and how many liters and even the customary measurements. Like look at labels and see how much these different containers hold. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some different objects and think about their capacity, how much liquid they can hold. Okay, so looking on the left at the trash can, I want you to think about, would this trash can hold 10 liters or 100 liters? So 10 liters or 100 liters. It holds quite a bit, so the correct answer would be this. If you're trying to imagine that, again, think about 10 of those Smart Water water bottles. And then looking over on the right, these are like test tubes and chemistry materials. Do you think one test tube could hold 10 milliliters or 1 whole liter? Just one of these. And obviously that test tube cannot hold a whole liter. So the correct answer would be 10 milliliters. On the left, you're looking at a can of orange juice, kind of like a can of soda. Do you think that can could hold 100 milliliters or 10 liters? Now, again, thinking about liters, how large those are, 10 water bottles cannot fit inside there. So the correct answer is 100 milliliters. And then on the right, you have some fabric softener in that jug. And I want to know, does it hold 3 liters or 300 liters? The correct answer is 3 liters. 300 liters would be a lot. Like, I'm having a hard time even imagining how much that would be. Probably enough to fill my bathtub even. On the left, you have a container of toothpaste. Does that hold 20 milliliters or 200 milliliters? The correct answer is about 20. On the right, the teacup. Does that hold 200 milliliters or does that hold 200 liters? Again, that's a lot of liquid right there. 200 liters would be a ton. So let's go ahead and circle 200 milliliters. And then finally, this watering can, do you think it could hold 4 liters or 14 liters? That one's a little closer, trying to think about how many of those water bottles could I pour inside there. 14 is a bit much, so 4 liters is the correct answer. All right, that's all for today. Hope that helped you understand the metric units for capacity.